what is the single spot you filmed in that most affected your experience as a director and most affected the final story that you told?
Well, thank you, Jake. I've never been asked that question before, so I have to think about it. So that I have to think about it a little bit here for a second.
Where we're going, we don't need roads.
I'm going to start out by saying just how much I loved Here. It's genuinely one of my favorite movies so far this year. And there is a line in the movie that really stuck with me that the future is the only direction we're heading. And you are a filmmaker who's been constantly pushing us into the future of what's possible with storytelling. And obviously, here is just the latest example of that. And I'm really curious how your experiences heading into the future have molded you as a storyteller. How did the innovations and risks you took on Back to the Future and Roger Rabbit and Forrest Gump prepare you for the kind of storytelling risks and innovations you took with Here?
Yeah, well, as I was making the movie, the thought occurred to me, sort of in the middle of the process. I had this revelation. I was thinking, I could not have made this movie as a novice filmmaker. I needed a whole body of work to prepare me to make the movie Here. I had to have the confidence to know that I could pull it off in the form that it is, and just the understanding of all the pitfalls that could happen when you're making a movie that's sort of styled the way this one is.
Well, it's clearly the kind of film that, I mean, it's there. It's clearly the kind of film that's made by someone who respectfully knows what the hell he's doing. The movie is also, I feel like, a really humbling reminder of how one single spot on this earth can affect who we are as people. You have worked on some of the most amazing sets and sound stages and real life locations on your films outside of the living room and Here. What is the single spot you filmed in that most affected your experience as a director and most affected the final story that you told?
Well, thank you, Jake. I've never been asked that question before, so I have to think about it. So that I have to think about it a little bit here for a second. Um, I think what pops into my mind instantly is the island that we shot on Castaway. That the fact that we found a completely uninhabited, it was actually a sacred island that they let us shoot on, and that I think is probably the number one location that becomes a character in one of my movies.
I mean, talk about another example of a movie that I feel like you could not have directed if you were a novice storyteller. Speaking of locations, you're a kid from the south side of Chicago. From what I've read, you didn't really necessarily grow up with theater or books or music, but you did grow up with the television set and access to an 8 millimeter camera. And I'm really curious in what way your path to filmmaking was set because of your childhood growing up on the south side of Chicago.
Yeah, well, I did have three neighborhood movie theaters that were within walking distance, and I did spend a lot of time in those. But they were what back in the day were called second run movie theaters, where the films came like a month or 6 weeks after their release in the downtown theaters, and television was what I watched all the time. I just watched tons of television, and that was my window on the world. And I don't know, something in the water in Chicago, maybe the delicious Chicago water. Somewhere along the line, I got. Well, I think what happened is I would go to movies, or I would see something movie on television, and I would be moved by it emotionally. And I just thought I have to get to the bottom of what this powerful thing is that is making me feel, and understanding that I like characters, and then when bad things happen to them, I'm feeling bad about it, that sort of thing. And so I wanted to get to the bottom of what created this magic. And so then I started to explore, what a director did, what a writer did, and then fell in love with the art form.
Well, so many of us have fallen in love and been affected by theatrical experiences that you've created. You talk about the theaters that surrounded you as a kid. Would you, if you don't mind, if it's not too personal, would you take me back to the moment you and your dad saw Bonnie and Clyde in
Yeah,
Chicago?
no, I saw it on this. It was the State Theater in on Michigan Avenue South. Like 112 South of Michigan Avenue, and yeah, I talked him into going to bring me to Bonnie and Clyde because all the kids in school were talking about this very violent scene at the end of the movie, and everyone suggested it was worthwhile to go see that. And what happened there was there's a moment in the movie where Gene Hackman's character is dying, and I was just very moved by that, and I was felt so sad that he was not going to be in the movie anymore. And that was the moment where I think that was my seminal moment where I said, I'm here in a dark theater surrounded by strangers except for my father, and I'm being emotionally moved here. I got to get to the bottom of how this is happening and why. And that's where I think I fell in love with the idea of being able to make a movie.
Well, it's funny. There's a scene in here where Tom is kind of at that fork in the road that many of us face, where you either chase your dreams or you say, listen, it's got to just be a dream I had because I gotta deal with life right now. I'm sort of curious. Tom's character goes one way, you went another. What kept you from saying, hey, you know what, that sounds like a cool dream, but that's not going to work for me?
Yeah, maybe it was sort of that inborn Chicago drive. I think it had to come from growing up in the shadow of the Pullman shops, and there was it had to come from my Chicago environment because that's the only place I was. But I had this drive that wasn't going to be stopped. It's something I just had to do.
Well, we're all the better for it. Chicago is obviously it's a city that changes people, that affects who we are. It's embedded in our DNA. Over your filmography, I'm curious which movie in your career would you say maybe has Chicago's fingerprints most on it, was most affected by your experience growing up here?
I would say the movie you just saw here. I think it is, and I think it's also because I was able to, age a bit and look back and see sort of like how be able to look at sort of the patterns of how someone's life can evolve. But I would think there's a lot of things like especially like in the art direction in the house that Tom Hanks lives in. There's a lot of things that I was able to like put in there that are obviously reminiscent of the house that I grew up in.
Well, it's so funny because obviously you're very clear where this house is in the film. But I think what I'm getting chills thinking about it. What most works is that every person who sees this movie, who sees that house in that living room, is going to say that was my house. Like that was the house I grew up in.
Well, that was our intention, and it was all inspired by Richard McGuire's graphic novel. But that's the intention. I mean, the intention is to create a powerful intimacy about these moments, specific moments in our life, and to understand that very important things happen right here. They happen right here, and then we move into the next room, or we then get in our car. But something does happen every place that we are. So it's kind of a really interesting story, and it's something that I just loved when I read it for the first time.
I don't want to give it away, but you do something with a mirror in this movie that made me. Sony was kind enough to screen it just for me here in Chicago. I audibly went because it was incredible. It was one of my favorite little moments I've seen in a movie this year. Shifting gears for a second, I have read a million different versions of a certain story, but I'd love to get your version. How in the hell did Steven Spielberg become your mentor?
Steven Spielberg became my mentor. Um, he made a movie called Sugarland Express when I was in film school, and he brought it down to the school before it was released, and ran it for the class, and then did a Q&A afterwards. But I was astonished because this 20-year-old kid walked in and he made this magnificent giant movie. And I went, wow, this guy is instantly my hero. So right after that class, I just ran up to him and said, hey, would you like to see my student film? And he was very gracious and said, yeah. And of course, this was the day before there was videotape. So my student film was film on a reel. And so he was right before, it was right before he was going to go off and make Jaws. And he set up a screening at the Universal Studios in a screening room with just him and I, and I ran him my student film, and he thought it was really good, and so we kept in touch, and that's the true story. That's how it happened.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that with me. Here is obviously such a testament to how much relationships and people change over time. This year, as I'm sure you've been told, 30th anniversary of Forrest Gump. Your first collaboration with Tom and obviously with Robin as well. I'm sort of curious. Do you remember your first day filming with Tom on that movie? I'd love to know what was the first scene on Forrest Gump that you guys shot together.
Um, the first scene I shot with Tom is something that didn't make it in the final movie. So yeah, it was. It was a scene with he and Robin walking along a creek. It's not, but that's the truth. It was he and Robin walking along the creek, and it was an okay scene. But when we started assembling the movie, it just didn't make it into the final cut. So isn't that interesting?
I think that's very interesting. I'm gonna shift to another sim. Look, I've been told by a lot of directors, you never know. You never know in any given moment that scene's going to be the thing, or that this is going to be the thing that people quote when you shoot the box of chocolates scene on the park bench, on the bunch waiting for the bus. What was there? No, there's no indication, right? There's no indication that like that's going to be the thing that for the next 30 years you're going to hear over and over again for the rest of your life.
Oh, of course not. No, 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 no. You never know that. You never know that. So that became this kind of hook line for the movie. Life is like a box of chocolates, but you can understand the Forrest Gump philosophy when he says that, and we can kind of all understand that that's
when Here ended yesterday. And I'm wiping tears from my face sitting alone in the movie theater. It made me realize how much you've made me cry in a movie theater. I mean that in the best way possible. I flashed back to Forrest at Jenny's grave and Wilson floating away. And without giving it away, the final shot of this film, what you do in the final shot of this film, if you were to watch your own filmography from start to finish, what's the moment or the scene that you think might actually bring you closest to tears?
well. The one that you mentioned is the one. If you have a minute, I'll tell you the story. It's the one when Tom is talking to Jenny's grave in Forrest Gump, and we were literally doing a scene in Vietnam that morning, and my assistant director came up and said, we got beautiful weather, we got beautiful sky. The Jenny's grave tree is right over there. Why don't we shoot that? Why don't we shoot the scene right after lunch? So I went to Tom and I said, "You ready?" And he said, "Let's do it." And we did 4 takes, and take number 2 is what's in the movie. And uh, in the middle of that take, I looked behind me, and the entire crew was in tears, and even the camera operator had to take his eye off the eyepiece and wipe a tear from his eye. So it was a very, very powerful well, obviously, it's all Tom's performance, and that's what makes it so magnificent.
For me, it's the line. You'd be so proud because he's so smart, Jenny.
Yeah.
That's the one where if I think I'm gonna make it all the way through, that's the one that breaks it.
Well, then you have to give credit to Eric Roth, who's the writer, because it's also beautifully written scene. Yeah. So,
As is the screenplay for here.
yeah, yeah. No, it's a good one. Yes.
I'm going to ask really quickly because I mentioned Wilson floating away and Castaway. Who has? I know I'm sure there are several, but I'd imagine someone went out and got that Wilson that was floating away and brought him back. Do you know who has that Wilson?
The actual Wilson, I don't, because I know that all I can tell you is that we had four of them with us on the set. The whack, I don't know. I've got one of them. Steve Starkey, my producer, has one of them. Tom Rothman, who's the head of 20th Century Fox when we made the movie, he has one of them, and I don't know where the fourth one is, but it might be out there in the somewhere. But I don't know exactly in that shot where he floats away which one of those four it was because they're all identical. I don't really know.
Is yours like on display somewhere?
No, it's in a vault.
Oh,
Yeah, right. No, no, it's not on display. Yeah.
fair enough. I host a segment here in Chicago called the Moments That Made Us, where I look back at the most iconic movie scenes in history with the actors and the filmmakers who made it possible. And one of my favorite movie scenes of all time is the final clock tower sequence in Back to the Future. It's to me it's the perfect example. If I taught a film class, I would show this and say, look at the direction, look at the editing, look at the score, look at the performance. It's this is perfect. And I'd love for you really quickly, if you don't mind, to take me back to set that day. I'd love to know just what you remember most about shooting that incredible sequence.
Well, my favorite moment is when I told Chris Lloyd what he was going to have to do. And I said, okay, Chris, well, we're going to put this harness on you. We're going to climb you up to that ledge. We're going to put a cable on you, and you're going to walk, on your tiptoes from, this edge to that edge. And then you're going to, reach over and grab the clock face. And he looked at me and said, okay. And there he went. And there he went. But like all good actors, he never let me know that he was afraid of heights, and he went up there and he did that, and it was, and we did a lot of it on a stage too. So we had a duplicate clock that was only 6 feet off the ground, but he was up there for those wide shots up there for sure.
Wow. And that's the Universal backlot, right?
That's the Courthouse Square at Universal Studios. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I thought it would be appropriate to close out by talking about the Chicago International Film Festival, since it's your third time closing the festival after Polar Express in Flight. You've been to countless festivals, and you've won every award imaginable. But when you come home, I'd imagine it has to hit different, and particularly to bring this movie home. What kind of feelings are stirring inside of you right now?
It's great. It's emotional and it's pride. And I just love being able to. I love, like I was saying earlier, I love being able to come back and taste the water. And it obviously was very formative in my young life to be kicking around the streets of Chicago, and the film festival has been great. As a matter of fact, that student film that I showed Steven Spielberg was the very first film of mine that ever was shown in any film festival back in, I think, 1973 or something. I might have the date wrong, but it was the Chicago Film Festival. Yeah. So there's a major connection between me and the Chicago International Film Festival. Yes, very much.
What do you think that Bob Zemeckis with that student film would think of your look at your filmography and just go, holy hell? What do you think he would say about how it all turned
I
out?
think it would be. It would be pretty daunting. I think it would be like, oh, well, I would probably think it can't be real. That's what I would probably think. It's like, are you kidding? So that's what I think it would. That's what I think my reaction would be if I had a time machine and came back and saw my filmography from here looking back, I would think that can't be possible. So it's really amazing. Yeah, I'm really grateful, unbelievably.
If only we could figure out which car to make the time machine out of. If only there were a certain car that would be just perfect for it.
Yeah, probably in reality, it should probably be a tracked vehicle. I mean, if you really were going to build one in a vehicle, you probably should have something that you could move around with where there are absolutely no roads.
But you got to do it in style, though. That's the thing. It's all
Yes,
about the
you have to
style.
be. Yeah, of course, it had to be. It had to be, and of course, it was set up to. It was put in the movie to set up a joke. When the farm family thinks it's a flying saucer. So. Yeah.
Mr. Zemeckis, I got to tell you, you are very much one of the reasons that I have the job that I have now. I fell in love with movies by seeing the films that you directed and the stories that you told, and that's what made me go, oh, this is not just a thing that I like. This is a thing that I want to sort of dedicate my life to. So I'm genuinely in this city and in this profession because of the work that you've done behind the camera. So just on behalf of myself and just a generation of movie fans, I just want you to know that we love you and we appreciate your work. And I absolutely love here. And I really do. This is so great to be able to have a little bit more than a junket slot. So I really do appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule for this.
I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me. And I hope the weather is as nice as it looks outside that window when I come there.
I'm going to call somebody. I'm going to make it happen. Don't you worry.
All right. Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Where we're going, we don't need roads.